We are now live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 28th, 2020 meeting of the Santa Rosa City School Board. Once again on Zoom in beautiful Santa Rosa somewhere. So let's all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm always facing the sunset. And unmute yourselves because I'd love to hear those disjointed voices on Zoom pledging allegiance. Let's do that. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible,
God, indivisible, with
liberty and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
All right. I'm going to say this because I always like to say something because we always love to say something. And I'm going to say this, that election day is 6 days away. And as we say the pledge for each meeting, and actually in school at Montgomery, we said it every single day, let's remember these words. And to the republic for which it stands, with liberty and justice for all. So we are a republic. And I used to be a social studies government teacher, right? So we're a republic where we elect representatives to make laws for us per the Constitution with minority rights protection. And voting is our right and a duty as a citizen. So again, we are doing this together. And again, we're making the path by walking it together. So happy election week. And I want to point out Trustee Manieri's t-shirt. You want to show us? Yeah. Yes.
Woo-hoo!
All right, cool. There are no actions taken in closed session at all for us to act on or report. Are there any statements of abstention tonight from board members? Seeing none. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? I do have one, and it is going to be pulling, and I think it's F8. Is that the one on Head Start?
Yes.
Yes.
Pull that one for discussion. Anything else? No. Which
report out of the legal case?
No. Oh, did I miss the legal case?
Yeah, we just have to do the vote on report out.
I don't have the number, Steve.
On the agenda. Lori, it's on the agenda. B4.
220-09133.
Okay. Existing litigation. Case number 202009133. Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay. We approved it in closed session. That was our report out.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that one. We are now to public comment on items not on the agenda, and we are giving you a full 3 minutes tonight. And moderator, do we have any public comments?
So to officially call for public comment, if you'd like to comment on a non-agenda item, please click the raise your hand at the bottom of your screen. We'll let you know when it's your turn to speak. You'll have 3 minutes, and we have a timer that should be visible on the screen to help you keep track. And it looks like we have a hand raised. It's Amy Bowen.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This is something that I was hoping was going to keep coming up on the agenda items until we're back in school in person. We've been told that the current hybrid schedule will not work in reality, especially for secondary school. I would like to be apprised. We are getting information from Dr. Kitamura on the current concerns with distance learning, but I would like to be apprised, and I think we all are very interested in how we're coming on an alternate, hybrid, safe back to school schedule that would work not just for the lower grades, but also for secondary school. I understand that we're in the purple and we can't go back to school now, but I would think that that future schedule should be worked on a lot right now so that we're ready at the appropriate time to go back. when the county health department says we can do it in the red or then hopefully in the orange tier. I would also contend that the current hybrid schedule, which is being used as an interim distance learning schedule, is not working for many of our students, as evidenced by the current crisis in grades, but also as evidenced in the feedback that you are getting from parents and from some teachers. Where is the plan to improve this current distance learning schedule? Our students are losing curriculum. They're definitely losing engagement. I think that something needs to be done with the plan for Wednesdays that are still kept entirely without instruction. And we need to be adding back in some instructional minutes on Wednesday. I would propose some kind of an A/B schedule so that students are engaged in classes 5 days a week instead of only 4 days a week and finished before 1 o'clock. If the teachers still need professional development time, that could be done after 1 p.m. on all of those days. Let's see if I've said everything. Oh, the one other thing that I keep bringing up is there are weekly collaborative meetings, I understand, with the teachers union. And I think there needs to be more voices heard in front of the board besides just the union voices. I would like it if you'd be hearing more voices from the parents and from the community that you're serving. And this is great that you're working on the grade problem right now, but you also need to be working on the scheduling problem, the current distance learning scheduling problem, and the future scheduling problem for when we're allowed to safely go back to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Next is Micah Carlin Goldberg.
Good evening. My name is Micah Carlin Goldberg. I'm an educational technology teacher for Santa Rosa City Schools. I was one of the earlier speakers at the previous board meeting, and we had some speakers who followed me who made some claims regarding COVID and numbers, and I wanted to address those. One of the speakers said that more kids are dying from suicide than from COVID. I'm not sure where they get their numbers, since the most recent CDC numbers are from 2017 for the number of suicides that we have had in our country. And in 2017, it was unfortunately around 50,000 people, which is 1/4 of the number of people we've lost in this country to COVID. The same speaker said that 99.97% of kids under the age of 17 survive COVID, which means that some die. We only have 15,000 students, and assuming all of them got COVID, we would lose almost 5 of them. Granted, not everybody's going to catch it, hopefully, but which one student are we willing to lose for opening too early and putting our students at risk? In New York, they lost dozens of students who died from COVID. California has luckily not lost many or any. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but it's not going to hold. And even if this person survives COVID, and notice I don't say recover, and I'm choosing this number, I'm reading this from a 28-year-old who said 99.9% of young people recover. I was 28 with no underlying health conditions when I got sick in March. I walked 12,000 steps a day and never smoked. So let's talk about what recovered looks like. Lungs. My lungs are trash now. Every time I get a cold, it wipes me out. I have breathing attacks if I try to move too far, too fast. Cardiac. I developed mitral valve prolapse and have frequent palpitations landing me in the ER. This is a female person. Reproductive. My period is irregular now, and I have PMS systems I never had. General intestinal. She says TMI. General physical mobility. I lost tons of muscle mass from being bedbound for months, had to relearn how to sit, stand, walk, and I have such severe fatigue, I sleep for 12 to 16 hours a day. She goes on. I'm going to remind everybody that just because you don't die from COVID doesn't mean it doesn't change your life forever. We have 16%, I believe, as of today, of the cases in Sonoma County are people under the age of 18. We don't know how affected their lives are going to be from having caught COVID. It's 1,400 people under the age of 18 have caught COVID already in our county with the schools closed. Excuse me, the school buildings closed. School's been open. We're teaching, right? We have to not just look at deaths. There's more to it. protect our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah.
And this is the last call for public comment on non-agenda items. Raise your hand if you'd like to comment on a non-agenda item. The next comment is Karen Wagner.
Hi, I'm Karen Wagner, and I work for Santa Rosa City Schools. One of my thoughts of what's going on with the cohort in the secondary and high school area would be possibly to, like elementary and special day classes, we know how to do this. We know how to work, with kids in our classroom and, host them all day long. And, then, so if we were to do something, it just dawned on me in the last couple of days, if we were to actually have every teacher do 12 kids in a classroom and use it as a directed studies of sorts, because there's multi-credentialed teachers, then they could actually zoom into their electives. So I don't know if that's been a thought, but then we wouldn't mix cohorts with period 1 and 3 and 5 and have all these kids going back and forth. So it was just something that's crossed my mind. I've worked in special day now for the last 20 years. And, I know that's special education, but I also know that elementary knows how to do this as well. So I don't know why the rest of secondary can't work as a homeroom directed studies class, so to speak. So thank you.
Thank you. And President Fong, there are no more hands raised.
Thank you so much. We're moving on to reports. CSCA Chapter 75 report. Do we have that tonight?
President Fong, there will be no report this evening.
Thank you. And there will not be an SRTA, Santa Rosa Teachers Association report, according to President Will Lyon. So Diane, Superintendent Kitamura, it's time for your report.
Thank you very much. Right now we have multiple committees working, made up of teachers and parents, and they're at the sites, they're at the district level, and even at the county level. And so one set of committees is looking at, as you read probably in the newspaper, about how we are taking on the challenge of our students and their well-being, teachers and their well-being, student engagement, where the symptoms is right now grades. And so we met as a county of secondary high school districts. There are 11 of us in the county on yesterday. And some great data was presented to the teams that were there that are made up of teachers and counselors and administrators. We've just begun the discussion, just as Mrs. Bowen is talking about, on ways in which we are going to look at what's happening right now through December 20th. Also for next spring, being ready for what's to come in the spring. And the other committees is the RTS, the Return to School committees. So those committees are also working back in, taking a look at the RTS plan, making adjustments and edits as needed as time has gone on. And so parents, people in the community, we've asked principals to be sure to put out the invitation so that your voices can be heard on those site committees. One of the advantages, if we can think of any advantage of being in purple, is we get to see what the plans are for people going back. One of the districts very near to us, Napa, who has they have much different statistics than we do regarding COVID, but they did start school on a Monday. They started school K-12. So they are my colleagues I know very well. And so we are watching, and they're giving me daily updates about what's going on, what's going right with the schedule that they have. But one of the things in Napa that we also have to be aware of is that they still can't have a cohort of 3 mix in a day. Right now they have 2, but that's even questionable. But they're trying it out, and the county is watching carefully about that. So again, please know that our teams, the cabinet's teams, are right now developing different models that the RTS committees will be looking at, that will come back to the executive committee next week. We will be bringing the return to school updated version 2.0 to the November 16th board meeting for the board to review. It is at that time that we hope to have models flushed out such that we can share all that we're looking at. So I did want to communicate that, and I'm thankful that Mrs. Bowen brought that up. It gave me a foray into that information. The other thing that I'd like to let everyone know is that we have begun to do our Wednesday update. So tonight came the second Wednesday update, and it pertains specifically to COVID and in-person school, return to school, all of those things. I'm pleased to say that Montgomery, Santa Rosa High, and now Pioneer High School have been approved for conditioning teams to come back and begin working out. Montgomery and Santa Rosa were last week, but this week Pioneer High School has come on board, and I'm sure the other 2 will follow shortly. Also, we are continuing to get to approve non-instructional small groups to come back to be able to get support from staff. And we are in the process, we should have some approvals this week, if not early next week, of small groups coming back for assessment and instruction. So very excited to be working together with teachers, with administrators, with families to begin to bring kids back in small, socially distanced, preferably outside, ways of connecting and trying to build back community. I think in all that we're hearing is that is really what's missing for our kids, is that inability to have a community. And so one of the Miss Wagner, you talked about, could we do something around a directed studies, or I think of it as maybe an advocacy or a homeroom. And that was definitely a topic of this countywide summit, as well as the summit that the committee I had today that talked about specific actions that we would like to begin to explore for this semester, and then putting in place for next semester. So it sounds like we're all kind of thinking in the same way, and I think that's very, very healthy. Let's see. Let me switch to another document that I have. I appreciate all of the parents and staff's patience as we went through an on and off of PSPS. Hopefully these things will be, coming to an end soon. So thank you, very much for the patience there. And then finally, I just want to keep people updated that we had our second full boundary committee, middle school boundary committee. The committee has done an excellent job of narrowing down potential maps. They are unafraid to ask the most difficult questions and the most courageous questions as it relates to equity, as it relates to fairness and social justice. And it amazes me what this group of people in this committee is doing, and have developed more maps. They actually develop more maps. So we are anxious to be able to get that out to the community, opening up our community forums, which will be very soon here, later November. Yeah, that's my update for now.
Thank you, Dr. Kitamura. I have no report tonight, and board members, please, with a show of hands, let me know if you have a report tonight. I see Director Close. I see Director McCormick, Director Manieri. We'll start with you 3.
Thank you, President Fong. I want to just start off by thanking Micah Carlin Wilbur for his comments. I do think there's world of COVID, whether we're talking about our response or education or the physical response and impact. And there's not quite enough talk about the lasting and ongoing impact that COVID has on many folks. And so I just appreciate that being part of the conversation and pointing out that it's not a black or white situation. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I just want to kind of put this on people's radar. I'm putting on my generation housing hat for a second as it relates to youth. It's never been really ever more clear about the connection between housing and health and housing and education right now. And our students who are kind of the victims of our housing crisis are suffering more than ever right now. And so one of the things that we've got going on that is a good opportunity for students around housing is that in January, and I just want young people to already think about this, we are going to have a sort of 3-month-long youth housing advocacy certificate program that you will get paid for participating in, about learning about housing and learning about advocacy, and then actually doing sort of an internship and make some money and possibly some JC credit for 16 to 25-year-olds. And so just right now, I'd love any young people who are interested in that to put that in their mind and also tell their friends about that, because we'd like to have a big group of young people getting paid to learn about how to advocate for themselves and their community. Thank you.
Who is next? Director McCormick.
I just wanted to say that I was thrilled to hear in your report, Dr. Kitamura, that we are starting to move towards some small socially distanced cohorts back on campus, both some non-academic and academic. I'm also thrilled about athletics and conditioning being phased back in again, following social distance protocols. I think that in light of the information that we're getting and we're desperately trying to address, I think you're right. I think that some sort of face-to-face grounding small cohort is the way to go to start this process. And students are just in desperate need of that, especially if we can provide it in a safe environment. I just wanted to say thank you to all the elementary school principals and teachers and staff. Because of the wonderful world of Zoom, I actually was able to attend 11 of the 14, or a portion of the 11 of the 14 different back to school nights last week. And it was really great. Some of the ones I tuned into early, I got to go in breakout rooms and talk with parents, and some students popped in too. So that was kind of fun to touch base with people. And one of the schools I was able to attend was Brook Hill, which, I'm proud alum, and Principal Indy hooked me up with the sweet Brook Hill Bobcat shirt. So I wanted to rep that tonight, and just proud and honor for all the hard work that you're doing and all the creative ways you guys figured out a way to do back to school night virtually. So that was exciting. It was fun to just pop in and be a fly on the wall and kind of see what you guys are doing and the obstacles that you're up against. And I was also thrilled to see the attendance from parents and grandparents and students at back to school night. It was pretty exciting. So I know it's really a hard situation we're in, but that was definitely a light to see that last week. So thank you. That's it.
Director Manieri.
Thank you. I just wanted to promote an event that's taking place in our district, the Rincon Valley Middle School virtual Halloween concert that's taking place tomorrow evening at 7:15 p.m. I'm planning on joining, and I'm really excited to see this be put together. I think this will be the first time that I see one of our performing arts departments put something together and have a premiere and an event around it. So I'm really excited to see all of this happen. And I hope that those watching right now and later, if you're watching the recording, will be able to make it as well and show some support for Rincon Valley Middle School. And I also want to remind those who haven't voted already to please vote. It's really important that we exercise this privilege because there are a lot of people who cannot vote, and there's a lot at stake at this election. And it doesn't matter who or what you vote for, but it's important to vote. So I just wanted to send that reminder. Thank you.
And that is Teacher Brandon Binder. Is that the right name? Okay.
Yes, Brandon Binder.
Thank you for that invitation and looking forward to that.
I just put it in I put the link in the chat. And that's going out to the attendees as well. So
Any other board reports tonight? And that would be Director De La Cruz.
I just want to thank everybody also for the back to school night. I went to the Learning House one as a parent, which was super cool. And I know we're in the process of figuring it out as we're flying the plane, we're building it. But the creativity and the flexibility that I see and feel every day, dedicated to this adventure and to this experiment is really just it moved me. And I want to do a special shout out to Maggie Desendorf, who just brings like this like total love for what it is that she's doing, and just a joy about kind of the chance to do something different that Learning House really provides. And so I'm just grateful for the opportunity for my kid to get a project-based learning education, and to learn how to really apply, very basic math and writing and analytical and critical thinking skills to real life problems. And I'm just psyched that they've chosen such real life issues that are facing our community, like environmental justice and food, that are so critical to our communities right now during COVID. So really understanding kind of the underlying circumstances that are driving food insecurity, why our community feels inequitable right now, and why we are seeing it for the first time, it feels like, for many of us. So I just thank you so much, Learning House. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Sue Linder. And thank you, Principal Barr, for just your leadership and for all that you're doing there. So excited to be part of it. Grateful to all of you for your work. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no other hands. Okay. Is there a CSBA report tonight? Director Close? No. All right. We have a special presentation from Schools Plus. Very exciting.
yes, Adina, can we bring Mr. Jason Lee over?
Yes, he's on his way over.
There he is. I see his name. President Fong, members of the board, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Jason Lee. He is the president of School Plus, and as you all remember, a former cabinet member for Santa Rosa City Schools. I'll never forgive him for that, but that's okay. Schools Plus has been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful benefactor for so many years. And it's what a special thing. I'm glad, Jason, I could work this out where we're doing this presentation to us, but also an acknowledgement of School Plus and the late Mr. John Briviescus, because I miss him and we adore him and we appreciate all he did to create this wonderful organization called Schools Plus. I also know that the current people, Jason and all the others, will ensure that it continues on. So with that, I turn it over to Jason Lee.
Hey, thank you all very much. First, I want to say to everyone that I see on the screen here and everybody that may be listening, thank you so much for all you're doing right now. I know that teachers and parents and students are really going through a lot trying to access education and trying to maintain some level of normalcy. And it's just really, really hard. And I know people are tired, and I look forward to the day when I can be back in the boardroom holding up a giant fake check and presenting instead of zooming in. This, for some reason, I always think of Hollywood Squares. I think, Tom, I'm going to take a Diane Kitamura for the block, please. No, just kidding. So Schools Plus is in its 30th year and have been donating to Santa Rosa City Schools all that time to the sum of almost $9 million. And I'm happy this year that we will be giving to the 5 high schools, 5 middle schools and Ridgeway, $210,000 in total. And so the base allocation for each high school is $20,000, and for each middle school on Ridgeway, it's $7,500. And this year is actually the second year we've had an additional grant opportunity, but this is the first year that it's the John F. Bribiescus grant. And those of you who know Johnny B, what an amazing human being, advocate for public education. He was a Panther, both as a student and a teacher. And he was just an amazing man to be a part of. I first met him when he was a summer school English teacher. He said, give me all the rowdy 7th grade boys. And I had this idea. So I gave him all the boys. He didn't lose one kid over to the summer school. They all made it. All 27 made it and showed up every day, didn't miss their 2 days and everything else. So the John F. Bribiescus grants are going out to, one's going to Comstock Middle School for all new sports uniforms when we get back into school. Maria Creel High School is getting money to upgrade their weight rooms for their student athletes. We're giving money to all the middle schools to support athletic transportation when we come back, and also to all the choral and band programs for all the high schools to participate in the annual event at the Green Music Center. So thank you so much for this. And I want everybody to remember that Schools Plus is alive and well. And even though we know that distance learning is the primary focus right now, and that athletics and the arts and performing arts are kind of in this weird virtual world, we're going to still continue to give, because we know that it's a drop in the bucket for what public schools need. And so we're going to continue to give on an annual basis, regardless of the pandemic. And that's a commitment to the schools, because we know that if you have healthy schools, you have a healthy community, and we want Santa Rosa to be a healthy community. So thank you all very much. Keep up the good work, stay strong, and know that Schools Plus is here for you guys. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jason.
So I'd also like to add that John built this from the get-go, right? It was his baby from the very beginning. Jason, thank you for taking over and leading it. Jason also was a Santa Rosa student and a Slater principal for many years. So thank you, homegrown guy, taking over for this. Schools Plus has added so much. What?
Geez, I'm getting bings and dings. I just want you to know that I'm a proud alumni of Lawrence Cook Middle School, Montgomery High School. Lori Fong was my economics teacher. And I'm always a part of Santa Rosa City Schools. My wife and all my kids are products as well. So thank you.
We love Schools Plus. Thank you so much, everybody who's part of Schools Plus and contributed to Schools Plus. When we get those big checks, man, we love them. I try to take those big ones to the bank. They'll take them.
You got to go to the special big check section.
All right.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, we're moving on to our discussion and action items. And the first one is a resolution recognizing the week of November 9th through the 13th as the week of the school psychologist.
So I turn this over to Assistant Superintendent Missoura. So Assistant Superintendent, can you honor our school psychologists?
Well, they honor themselves. I will certainly. President Fong, board members, and Dr. Kitamura, once again, I appreciate the recognition that we give to our school psychologists that have an integral part of our community, not just in terms of special education and the work they do there, but of course, the work and advice they give to our teachers, our administrators. As I've mentioned, they become a hub for a lot of the interactions we do with our MTSS systems and are just a fountain of knowledge. This year, appreciatively, of course, of the extra work that they've been involved in on our COVID response. Many of them are involved on our return to school committees. You'll see a lot of real deep involvement on the creation of models and ideas. And it's with much appreciation that now in a new a situation, they have stepped up even further and shown their worth. And just a quick hats off to our lead psychologist, and that's Matt F. Park and Katie Asagari. Thank you for all your leadership, organizing these things and kind of keeping us running. So thank you very much to that. And thank you, board, for recognition.
They have tough jobs. They have to kind of thread that needle. And we certainly have called on them many, many times for very hairy, scary things. So thank you to our school psychologists. We really appreciate you.
This is an action item.
Board, any questions? Yes, no?
No questions, just I'd like to make a motion.
We need to take some public comment.
Oh, that's right.
If anyone would like to comment on item E1, please raise your hand. I see no hands raised.
Oh, I wanted to hear from a school psychologist. Okay.
Oh, there's a.
Oh, we have a
I
hand.
can call on some.
Maura Ryan.
Hello. I just want to say thank you for this recognition for the wonderful school psychologists of Santa Rosa City Schools. I've worked professionally with them in the past, and they serve some of my children, and they are top-notch grade A, and I'm very appreciative of all that they do for the district, for our students, for our families. Thank you very much for recognizing them.
Thank you for that.
And there are no more hands raised.
All right. No other discussion. Call for the motion. Director Manieri.
I'd like to move to accept the resolution recognizing the week of November 9th through the 13th as the week of the school psychologist.
I second.
Second.
Okay, it is really hard to figure out who said that. Was that Jen Close? We'll say it.
I don't know.
Okay.
It was Jen. Go ahead.
I'd like to second this one because my favorite uncle is a school psychologist and one of the mentors of one of our school psychologists.
Oh.
So
All
I'd
right.
love the honor.
Yeah, we can have that vote.
Director Lopez,
Aye.
Director Manieri,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz. Or sorry, Director
Aye.
Close.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
President Fong.
Aye. Absolutely great. Week of the school psychologist. And of course, when we give these weeks, it's kind of like every week is the week of the school psychologist. Every week is the school of the teacher. We always appreciate people. Item number 2 is E2. It's a discussion. It's the wellness responses for return to school, addressing needs from layers of trauma. And Diane Kitamura, I'm
Yep.
turning it over to you.
Thank you. I was recently asked by a reporter about whether or not the grades that we are looking at right now or mental health, which one is, which one will we tackle first? Which one is more important? And it was a great question because I had to think and say, wait a minute, it's like the chicken and the egg. You really can't discern which one because it goes hand in hand. If grades are not so well, then that disrupts what we think about ourselves as human beings. If we're not feeling so well in terms of our emotions and our well-being in that end, then our grades may suffer. So I think that this presentation is extremely apropos about where we are right now, what we're researching, what we're studying, what we're building action plans around this very new situation that we are in called the pandemic. So I turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Mazzara. I know that there's going to be some things I'd like to add as they get through and get through this. Things that I've learned from data that we recently received from the county office and other entities such as Youth Truth. But I'm going to have Steve go ahead and get started with their presentation.
Thank you very much, President Fong, board members, and Dr. Kitamura. I want to introduce to you a couple of people of our Student and Family Service team. What we're going to be presenting to you tonight is kind of an update on what we've done as a COVID response to this year, kind of where we've been, how we got here, and then how we are ready for some of this response, but we still have some work to do. So I'm going to introduce Kesa Enemark to you. Kesa Enemark is a long-term Santa Rosa City employee. Formerly was the manager of the Best Plus program. And maybe you last might remember her coming to you in the spring, working with our multi-tiered systems of support. And she does that on a daily basis, works with a restorative specialist, and is a huge part of our family service team. Eric Lofty is a marriage and family therapist. First of all, he manages or supervises our clinical program and our school-based therapists. He also works with our integrated wellness center, is in charge of that on a daily basis. And then lastly, he'll give you more information today. He's also the coordinator and manager of our Kaiser grants, and that's to do with that. So with that, we'll turn it over to the team. We'll talk about our responses and of course, take questions at the end. Kesa and Eric, go ahead.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you, directors and Dr. Kitamura, Superintendent Kitamura. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Board of Education and Superintendent Kitamura for your ongoing commitment to supporting mental health needs throughout our community, and start this presentation with the awareness of how challenging the world is right now. We've been through so much over these last few years, and tonight we will be thinking about what we have faced together. We will acknowledge that this is a hard time for our system, and everyone involved in education is reeling, trying to adjust to a profoundly changed world. Tonight, we hope to share an adaptive way to look at social emotional wellness and hope to strike a clear path from crisis and disaster towards recovery and a systemic way to improve the wellness of our students and staff.
Trying to forward. Sorry, everyone. Trying to forward a slide so I can read my notes. We know that everything that's going on right now in our world is a lot. Being human in 2020 is tough, and it is compounded by a series of interconnected events over a short period of time. So this layered trauma induces social emotional need like never before and requires adaptive change. So consider this list of events to the right and begin at the bottom. We say it's like trauma lasagna. So I'll say that again, trauma lasagna. There are layers upon layers. And even though we have become experienced in supporting each other through crises, the reality is we've never been in a situation like this before. So we can say, hey, teachers, hey, principals, you know, you've done a welcome back circle after the fires, you've got this. But really, we've never welcomed people back, students and staff. We've never welcomed people back after a pandemic, compounded by a fire, social, economic, and political stress, and PSPS days related to a wind event. We haven't done that before. We also want to acknowledge that we are aware that people are experiencing these layers of stress disproportionately. And we acknowledge our obligation to address this inequity. That's a big deal. These are uncharted territories, and we are more prepared now than we were 6 years ago to respond to student and staff needs. So since 2014, we have rolled out initiatives and grants that focused us to build and improve our systems. This is how we do business, and improve our supports. And it's because of this previous work that you've heard about before in these board meetings that we now have the ability to respond after a crisis. Thanks to the grants like the School Climate Transformation Grant, or BEST Plus, the SAIL Attendance Grant, the School Attendance Improves Learning, community-funded fire recovery grants, and carefully allocated LCAP funds, we are able to fund positions and professional development dedicated to social emotional wellness. Some of the specific positions we now have include elementary counselors, SOL counselors supporting English learners and foster youth. We have mental health professionals at the site and at the district level. I'm lucky enough to work next door to one and co-present with him tonight, and restorative specialists across the district. We have the capacity to respond.
Tonight, we want to share with you where we've been, what we are doing currently, and propose some next steps related to mental health and social emotional wellness. We are going to lean on our past and current experiences, responding and adaptive to social emotional wellness needs. Currently, Santa Rosa City Schools has a lot to be proud of. We've established a long list of programs, partnerships, staff positions, and supports.
This slide outlines some of our wellness components. I won't read them all, but we have been busy. These items enable us to properly respond to our students and staff in times of need. Our return to school plan and our ability to address the impacts of COVID-19 rely on these and many other supports. Kesa, I'm not hearing you.
Oh, that's okay. So that's way more than $5.
That's a lot. That's thousands of dollars.
That's
In June, we finalized our multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS board policies and administrative regulations. Now here we're going to take a look tonight at our famous MTSS sailboat. And I want to point out two key features tonight. First, I want to recognize the attendance re-engagement teams. So you'll see that in the pink box at tier 1. Each site has a re-engagement team, which uses weekly attendance reports from the SAFE department to personalize support to re-engage students. Every student has their own story. Team members problem solve, provide resources, and connect with students, even conducting safe home visits. A special thanks to CSEA's collaboration on the all hands on deck approach, where employees who already know the students are helping reach out to those students and encouraging them to attend and engage in online school. The second significant piece I'd like to point out tonight is the universal screener, and you'll find that in the purple box there between tiers 1 and 2. And that was from number 39 on the return to school MOU between SRCS and SRTA. This screener provided data that the counselors and the tier 2 teams and their site leaders, they used to deploy support from the re-engagement teams and the tier 2 teams. It was a big feat. It was a lot of work, and we will loop back more to information on the screener in this presentation. Very funny. This does not want to go. On live TV and forever recorded. There we go. As part of MTSS, we use data of all kinds to point to the clues. So we look at attendance, behavior, and grades. Behavior is communication. The students are communicating to us through their attendance, behavior, and grades. The data points to clues on how distance learning is going for students. And in addition to those 3 data points, we are also looking at screener data highlighted in green here, and that also lets us know which students need more support. As outlined and mentioned before in the return to school MOU, we had teams of counselors. They helped us craft the universal screener questions, which was more of a needs assessment survey. So in elementary schools, we pushed out the screener to families through Parent Square. And then in secondary schools, the sites collaborated to identify a particular department, and that was decided at the school level. Teachers from those selected departments would send the survey link out to students as an assignment and also through Parent Square. The screener links and reminders were sent out various times in a variety of ways. Our screener committee, we convened weekly to resolve any issues and to reflect upon the progress of the screener. As the responses came in, the tier 2 team leaders, they sorted the data in a Google Sheet, and we offered some professional development sessions on how to sort that data and learn some tips on the technology there. And as you can see on this slide, district-wide, we had 54% completion. Elementary screeners went to parents with 47% completion rate, and there was a 61% completion rate by the secondary students. This was a great deal of collaborative work, from the planning to the implementation to sorting data and responding to serve students. Additionally, we really appreciate the documentation of such interventions in our student information system, because that really takes a lot of work as well. So we do thank you, counselors and the tier 2 teams and the re-engagement teams and the teachers and the school-based therapists and the administrators in this huge effort.
So our results from the screener demonstrated that the respondents, that of the respondents, about 9% of elementary and 12% of secondary families are struggling with significant emotional needs due to COVID-19. As you can see, this seems to represent a manageable number, but the response rate casts these findings into doubt. We do not know if the respondents, people who responded, are representative of our population, and that creates a potentially wide margin of error. We learned three important things, however, through this year's screener process: that we really need to tie our screener to student information system in order to be able to drill down into demographic and subgroup data. We need to be more culturally sensitive with that data, and we need to figure out ways to remove bias that could exist, and one that gets obviously a higher response rate than what we got from this. The screener did, however, pave the way for a true district-wide annual universal screener. So the National 4-H Council polled teenagers nationwide in May of 2020. And what we see is kids reported significant increases in mental health symptoms. We've seen many different studies similar to this one. Viewing these nationwide trends, we suspect that our screener did not tell the entire story. Early data and anecdotal evidence are showing similar trends and point to significant increases of mental health symptoms. And we think those symptoms are happening from what we know, from what we've learned within our staff, our student and family communities. Given the likely impact of these increases on our students and staff, we do need to prioritize social emotional wellness.
Well, over the years, you have heard us say connection before content. You may have seen some stickers on laptops around the campuses. And it's really been our way to message the idea that, in a nutshell, students whose needs are met are ready to learn. By putting these two pyramids in order with Maslow's first, then Bloom's, we demonstrate our belief that students and staff need to be emotionally well in order to learn and function at their best. Anxiety, stress, depression, and loneliness get in the way of students reaching their full potential. We have learned that school-based social emotional wellness services are associated with a wide variety of positive student outcomes. So improving attendance, improved academic achievement, reduced discipline referrals, and a decrease in student risk-taking behaviors. And again, here with a similar image, we illustrate how addressing social emotional needs is a precursor to academic achievement. As you can tell, I'm saying the same thing in a variety of ways. In both pyramids we are examining here, you can only reach the higher level when the lower levels have been reached first or met first. The idea we are reinforcing is that we can improve our outcomes if we have a strong social emotional foundation. Thank you.
In order to implement this focus on student and staff social emotional wellness, we propose to do the following. Implement a formal strengths-based universal screener tied to SEL standards. Screening for social emotional learning and strengths is a key aspect of improving the social emotional health of students. In the same way we use mathematics or reading assessments to measure student learning and progress, we would use a social emotional screener to help us understand where our students are with regards to their emotional wellness and development, and where we need to focus our social emotional learning efforts. Using a strengths-based screener that is based on research will help us ensure that we're not perpetuating equity concerns through either A, overdiagnosing students of color, or B, underserving students who need support because they are perhaps harder to reach. We propose that we continue to focus on staff social emotional wellness and resiliency. Staff stress and overwhelm are ongoing concerns that contribute to burnout, turnover, and staffing problems. COVID-19 and the rush to distance learning has compounded pre-existing problems, and we have doubled our efforts to support our staff. With board support, we have created an enhanced employee assistance program with a local mental health provider, SOS counseling, community counseling, to expand access to mental health care beyond what the staff may access through their healthcare plans. We have provided several staff resilience trainings through our Wednesday PD offerings. We are participating in a Kaiser Permanente program that focuses on resilience in school environments. And our mental health staff also consult with school staff to support their practice through understanding how to manage their emotional response and stay centered. The school counselors are working with district staff to revise and update their comprehensive counseling plan to ensure that school counselors are consistently serving students across the district. And then finally, we propose to the integration of the education-related mental health services and school-based therapist roles. As we improve our capacity to provide mental health interventions with our own internal school-based therapist, we have the ability to provide general education school-based therapy to reduce the over-reliance on special education supports to provide mental health services for students with IEPs. Currently in progress, our staff are working to continue prioritizing social emotional wellness. We are committed to leveraging outside funding to meet our needs, improving our ability to deliver mental health resources and services. We are improving our crisis approaches and implementing a tiered approach to staff and students. And as part of our history responding to local crisis and emergencies, we've developed a very strong partnership with Kaiser Permanente and the Kaiser Permanente Community Benefit Foundation, who have provided significant support to advance social emotional wellness. Kaiser Permanente has consistently funded our crisis response efforts since shortly after the 2017 fires. Kaiser is a key partner and continues to support our ability to have mental health professionals working within our district. RISE is an initiative that will be working with district and site staff to help us assess and improve our policies, practices, systems, and environments to better advance social emotional wellness. And I'm excited, very excited to announce that today's presentation marks the public announcement of the receipt of another $500,000 to specifically support our ability to meet student and staff social emotional needs during and after the pandemic, funding 2 school-based therapists and 1.5 family engagement workers to support students who are struggling with engagement and the emotional impacts of COVID-19. And that $500,000 is over a 2-year period.
Honorable board members, we leave you tonight with much to consider. We hope you will continue to support the social emotional wellness at Santa Rosa City Schools through a future board policy on mental health programs, expanding our own mental health staff, a universal screener, and social emotional learning district-wide. With all that we have been through and with all that we are going through right now, we thank you for your attention to the social emotional wellness of all children and staff members in Santa Rosa City Schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kesa and Eric. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. And I think board members will take questions in a moment. I think what we are attempting to show you is we've spent a lot of time to get to where we are. We are in a place that no other district in Sonoma County is available to give support and care for our students and staff, but we are by no means ready for it, for the kind of the level that we potentially think will happen. So we really encourage you guys to help us go through that. We'll come back with some information based on some feedback and kind of come back and take it from there as a next step. So with that, I'll turn it back to President Fong, and we'll, Kesa and Eric and I will try to address any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kesa. Thank you, Eric. Board members, do you have any questions right now? We're going to take questions, we'll hear public comments, and then we'll discuss. Director McCormick, and then Director De La Cruz.
And Sheffield.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I know that we are very supportive of just overall mental health and wellness for our students and our staff and our faculty, but I really appreciate you going through the programs that we're offering. I have a question about the screener data. You answered part of it when based on the results that you got back, about 50% of parents at the elementary school level and about 60% of students at the high school level, and that you're looking toward doing another screening and collecting more data on this and pulling out some subgroup data. So I was glad to hear that. My question with the data that we did receive in this initial screening, are we kind of looking at or making a list of who we did hear from and who we didn't hear from? and kind of asking, it seems like you're starting to ask the questions of, okay, who didn't we hear from and why, and who did we hear from and why? And I just want a little bit more on that and kind of how you're going to make the adjustments and maybe perhaps when the next screening would be.
Asa, could you kind of address what the teams, once they come back with the data, how they're kind of digging into that?
So as the results came back, a lot of counselors and their tier 2 team site leaders, they were examining the data on the spot and really looking at certain questions they were really worried about. For example, the slide that had the 2 pie charts, that was the sort of the hot question that a lot of counselors we were nervous about. You know, what was the need going to look like in the respondents? Basically, we're planning that generally you do a universal screener in October each year. And this was more of a needs assessment survey, because in these distance learning times, Eric and I did some research that really the experts in the field that do what they call PBIS, positive behavioral interventions and supports, they did not advise during distance learning that we do a traditional universal screener. And I think there was a concern of how can we get with the students and connect with them and offer the same kind of counseling that we might in person. So we also did discover, and I want to be open about this, that we couldn't get the demographic data. And I think, or Member McCormick, that's what you're mentioning here. We couldn't drill down the way we would like to in an easy way that if we had a screener connected to the student information system, it would have been a lot easier to do so. And we were very interested about that information as well.
So, Director Komarek, so obviously there's growth that we're trying to do out of this. For us, a lot of this was just establishing some baseline and process. There was a lot of anxiety around asking students these questions. I think our team, Kesa and Eric really dug in, and they were able to really tell people, let's just approach the data like we would any system. And so we kind of working through that process, and they're giving some suggestions of how we want to improve. And I don't know if we're going to do it twice a year, coming forward. October feels like a window. There's a get to know your student kind of feel that you need for a couple of weeks before we do it. But there's also some strength around closing out the year, because that also guides us for some program development for next year as well. So we're going to look at that, the cost associated with it, the staff time. So we're digging into that for the next couple of months and come back with some recommendations.
I would love to, this is probably a huge lift, but I think in the year that we're in right now, in the situation that we're in right now, and getting other sort of feedback on the students in Sonoma County are particularly affected by the layers of all the trauma that we've been faced with since the Tubbs fire and even before that. That I would love to see another screen even this year, if that's possible, maybe halfway through the spring or in the third quarter sometime or something. I don't know what that looks like or what, but I think we need probably more information than less.
Sure.
The circumstances. But thank you again. This is incredible. And the grant, the RISE group, and that now we're up to almost $750,000 on this is pretty impressive. So thank you for all your hard work on that.
Yeah, thanks for acknowledging that, and the possibility of doing more screening to know where our students are. When students are coming into our building every day, it's very obvious who not very obvious, but it's significantly more easy to identify students that need support. Their heads are down, their behavior's off, something's different about Johnny this morning. And then we, because of who we are, just naturally go to them. And it's significantly harder for us to do that now.
Case, is this something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was going to say one thing, John, just Director McCormick and others. This is one segment of 3 ways students interact with our system in our MTSS. There's a student referral process, there's staff and family process, and then our system. So we're fine-tuning the system, but as we get more and more people understanding, the teachers develop a capacity to understand what that looks like. As we mentioned in our slide, what that behavior coming at me may be. That may be a trauma-informed situation where when I become more aware of it as a teacher or as staff at a school site, then I can access kids into the system. That's the fully functioning system. You really have to rely on all 3 tiers of that to really get that strong. Thank you.
I just wanted to add that we have schools, I think because of this universal screener, we have teams that are almost, they're surveying families even more. So LCM High School had created their own screener before the screener came out. So I was impressed with that. And then recently, the principal at Comstock, Laura Hendrickson, sent me some survey results that were very interesting about, are you home alone? Is there someone that can help you? Are you only responsible for your schoolwork, or do you have to watch one of your siblings? It was really, they were really digging more deeply in different categories than our simple screener did. And so I feel like this is paving the way for people to feel more comfortable and curious. So I've been proud of the pieces that I've heard. I think that teams are ready and would be willing to do another screener for sure. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Director De La Cruz.
Sure. I just adding thanks, and I just want to give a special thanks to Kaiser, to our community partners in this, because I think one of the things that becomes very clear with this presentation and the way in which you're able to leverage this data with our community partners is that we are not in this alone. And in fact, if we are in this alone, then we're all screwed. So I just really want to, raise up Kaiser as they rise up our kids and our families, to just call out what an incredible and very powerful partnership that is. So thank you to all the wonderful folks there who are thinking about our larger community. My comments were much in line with Jill's, was just making sure that we were using kind of all systems in place, especially for those families that are hard to reach. So I know that the family engagement coordinator position is such a critical one, and I'm wondering if there's a way, to really rely on more one-on-one contact with families that are harder to reach. I think this is a challenge with every local institution right now is, there is such a focus on technology and that being the way to reach folks. And we know that that's a huge disconnect for many, many, many of our families. And so I think just figuring out how our screening capacity is really, increased by those more non-traditional ways of reaching out to our families and kids. And then, I had another thing and it went. Okay, the youth truth data. In line with this idea that we have, powerful community partnerships that can be leveraged here. How can we get, how can this data be not only beefed up, but really kind of pushed out, right, to everyone? How can each of us be a data dork in this moment, to really be able to dig around and pull out and analyze the pieces about what each of us can do? I'm thinking just this board is a powerful example of what community partnerships could have, could come out of increased amounts of data around our specific needs as a community, and to really assist us to tell our story in the way that only, all of us can together. So I would just love to see, how we're understanding the different data points that we're getting and making sure that they're all flowing in to helping us make some conclusions and then to building deeper partnerships. So Diane, I don't know if is there going to be a separate presentation on the youth truth data, or is this kind of where we're starting now and then that's going to come later, or how are we kind of looking at all the data that's available, especially that's been in the news as of late?
Oh yes. And yesterday was actually the first time I got the slides from Youth Truth to lay out some of this data. And I think we're going to show this at the RTS because it's going to be included in the RTS as a part of a new section around community partnerships. Okay, we didn't have that in the first one, but we're going to make some specific asks.
Exactly.
Because anyway, so I don't want to, when we get to the RTS plan, we're going to have some specific asks because the areas that the Youth Truth actually really support the data that you saw tonight, it is a little more broken down by demographic. And once again, our Latino population is, doubly affected by everything that's going on. I think that there's the academic side of it and things that we need to work on. I think that the other part of it is what you saw in the paper, which was the 71% or 7 out of 10 having an anxiety, a fear of the future. But another statistic that I saw yesterday in this data is around thoughts around suicide as a result of the fires and of COVID. I mean, it's up over 35% of students are having these kinds of feelings. So this is extremely serious. And we must include it as a part of the RTS as we're going back. And so we will provide that data at that time, this slide deck that I have. That's one. The second thing is, as a result of what we saw in this data, we are asking SCO to facilitate a post-test, because like fairly quickly, because the COVID hadn't really begun. This is some COVID, but now that we're in it, we'd like to see another assessment done by Youth Truth. And specific to COVID, we are also going to do our entire Youth Truth survey, the entire one, in January. So this has raised this data, the data that we produce, the data from Youth Truth, has raised so many more questions that we need to look at and address and respond to. And it is actually proof that everything we're feeling and everything we're saying about our community is showing up in this data, in the numbers. And so if we don't act upon this, then we are irresponsible. And so as a community, and I want to say this, I think Director De La Cruz said it earlier, or maybe I dreamt it, I don't know. This is not a Santa Rosa City Schools issue, folks. I am begging the community to come forward and be partners with us in every which way possible. Or I will be a partner with you. I don't care which way it goes, but we continue to be in the purple tier. There's a reason behind it, folks. And look at the map of California. If we continue with the practices that we're continuing with in this county, we will not get out of purple. And I am hand-tied as your superintendent to bring kids back as long as we're in purple. I'm hand-tied to work with the students who need us most right now from both a mental health standpoint and an academic. So I'm really pleading with this community to wake up and smell the coffee with me. And let's do something about this. Let's do something about this. It's going to take very, very brave and courageous decisions for us to shift our practices with regard specifically to getting out of the purple tier. I'll stop.
Superintendent Kitamura, I just want to add, whatever you need from me, I want you to know that I am your partner in this, and that this is you're absolutely right. This is our entire community. There is no way that this is just ours to solve by ourselves. These are all of our children. They are the children of the people that you employ. They are the children of the people to whom you rent, who you may be trying to evict because they cannot pay their rent. Think about those kids. Think about how hard it is for those kids to focus in school if they know that their family is at risk. Yeah. Like this is about really digging deep and finding all of those, you know, that savings bank that we need to have for each other right now. Yeah. And for those who can, please give. And for those who have the power to make some decisions around the policies that are going to keep these families and these kids safe and whole, you need to be thinking about them a lot harder these days. Mm-hmm. This is not just on us, and these kids are all of our future. Mm-hmm. So, Kesa, Eric, thank you so much for your work. If there's any way that you need any support from me as your board member, as a county staffer, I just please count on my support with whatever you need. And thank you very much for your work.
We need to do
Director De La Cruz
right now.
What's that? Oh, switch.
Thank you, President Fong.
Go ahead, Adina.
And then President Fong, Ed had his hand up after Alegria. So.
We're all set. Thank you.
Director Sheffield.
All right. I'll be brief because already the issues, at least a couple of questions that I had, were brought up by Director De La Cruz and Director McCormick. But one thing that Superintendent Kitamura touched upon was, the bigger picture, that we're all kind of going, into this together collectively as a community. And I'm wondering, we're fortunate enough as a district to be addressing this because, we're we're geared that way, right? Especially around the equity side of things. And I'm so glad, of course, that we're addressing this right now. Great presentation. I love that it started with where we're at and went through where we're headed. And that's my question, is about where we're headed. There's just so much uncertainty about how trauma impacted our students are. We know that as parents, we look at our kids and they look okay and they sound okay sometimes, but we know that they really aren't. And we as parents, as adults, we know we're not okay either, right? So this is going to be a long-term commitment if we're going to try to take this on now. And the funding that we're getting is not adequate. And I'm wondering what schools, not just in our district or across the state, but nationally. I mean, what are we doing around funding the supports that we know are going to be needed for a long term? And right now is the time to start asking these questions. At the state level, the legislators are back and they're formulating their policy platforms for the upcoming year. And as far as the national level, we may see some significant change next week, but we don't know. But there is a bill floating out there, a round of stimulus funding to address COVID, and it obviously does not go far enough for the challenges that we're going to face. So I guess my question is on the lobbying side. What, who, how, Diane, with all of your resources at the state level, with what we have here at the local level, with our legislators that are so willing to have these conversations with us, what can we do? What do we need to do?
Diane, let me take a first crack at that, because many couple layers, and I really appreciate the layers, Director Sheffield. One of the things I think before we go there, I think you heard in the presentation that we need more data and better data. So as we come back with better data, what that'll do is that'll allow us to layer, just like those triangles, the social emotional over the academic. So we need to make that connection visible to people, because that helps then get to your point, Director Sheffield, of funding. Look, we saw that Kaiser's a strong partner, and personal shout out to Elena Walls, who's really been a connection for us, and so great appreciation, like you mentioned. But with a data source, we had Comcast Universal come at us with the fires and gave us good support. I think if we present the picture like a portrait of a Sonoma County student, I think if we do develop that well, some of the funding will come at us. It'll give us a kind of a pitch to go get some of that funding, I think a lot more powerfully, depending on whatever political situation arrives. And the last thing, just part of that is we can't forget about our social emotional for our staff. The teacher is not going to teach those higher levels and all the things we're asking them to do if they're not in the place. And so you heard that woven in our presentation about staff resiliency. And of course, that's what Kaiser recognizes also. So at the same point, we have to get good data about our staff so we can address their needs, right? And really we weave those into our funding requests and that kind of stuff. So I think that's an example. And Dr. Kimura, I'm sure you have more.
No, that's the data, I think is critical, because it is what you take forward. But I think it's a bigger systems issue. I know we're talking about Santa Rosa City Schools and the uniqueness of our trauma. I think that relief has to come from legislation around not being liable. It has to come around re-looking at SB 98 and the definitions around attendance and live engagement. There's just so many pieces of are adding to this. I think that the next step is to really, for our legislators, is to show them the data, show them what's happening, a portrait of a Sonoma County student, and saying, look, we need help. We have a train going with staff and students that is headed in a direction that we've got to be able to manage. For this reason, we're going to have a set of graduates come this June. Or are we not? Will they be so off track for graduation that there's going to be some really extreme things that we have to do, not only academically, but mental health wise, as a result of them working for 12 years and now their 12th year being like, okay, what's going to happen with me? I think for those parents and students that are aiming for college, we get anguished phone calls and emails about what's going to happen for college. So then I take it to the systems level. What's happening at the state level, at the national level, to give our students, the Sonoma students, a leg up for any university they want to go to, right? Those kind of higher level systems things I think need to be addressed. And then where's the funds going for mental health? You know, when we have mental health funding coming from feds and state, where is it showing up at the schools? That's what I would like to know. Where, because they talk about it and we get asked about it, but not as a grant basis, but as a part of a funding formula. We have a funding formula that talks about EL and special education and homeless from an academic measurement standpoint. Where is the social emotional measurement standpoint such that that becomes a part of the formula as well? So
yeah.
those
Well,
are
so
my.
the reason why, Diane, the reason why I brought this up, and Steve, is because of the timing wise. Again, you know, I know we need more data. Yes, that's true. But we also know a lot because we started suffering, you know, 2017, right? And we have a senior class now that has seen nothing but their years of high school as trauma, right? And that is a pretty compelling case to bring forward. And the reason why, again, on the timing side of things, is because at the state level, they're tied to a fixed calendar, at least as far as legislative wise. So, you know, if we are looking at something that might bring attention to the issue to really get the ball rolling, that's real dollars, you know, or a steady funding source. Because again, it shouldn't be a year after year issue where we're reassessing, because we know that the trauma is going to carry over for years and years and years. And Steve, I'm glad that you guys brought up the point about the impact to our students, but also the impact to our staff, to our teachers. Absolutely, you know. But again, I'm concerned about the timing, and so I'm wondering, you know, who could do the lobbying, who will do the lobbying.
I think that short term, the community partners like Kaiser, we need them. We need them for the short term. For the long term, changes in policy on that, we need the legislature.
Right.
And so,
so do you have an ask, I guess, of us? I mean, what can we do?
Yeah, based on the report that you saw, we really need the resources. We want to expand to social workers, case managers, bilingual. Eric, chime in, Steve. You know, family. I told Steve we need to bring back our attendance. What are they?
Mentors.
The attendance mentors that we had from our SAIL grant, our attendance grant. We need to bring those back and more, because they will do the outreach like Alegria was talking about.
It's that hand holding that needs to be done.
Yeah, way down.
Yeah. Effective on outreach, because, you know, like was pointed out, you can survey, but you can't get, you know, an accurate response. And we know who we're not getting a response from. If we already know that, then go into it holding the hand of the people that we really need to help.
Yes.
And,
yes.
Yeah. Okay. I will say no more.
It is that. So community-wise, in terms of that's short-term funding that we want to do, you know, almost as soon as we can. That's a board, you know, a board could do that. You can go out and look at that short-term funding. I mean, we are going to look to partners for the second, this newer Youth Truth we want to do, and I know that we'll be able to do that. But partners, community partners, to help us with the immediate resources of getting people connected to people. To be able to help get them back into a community. That's it.
Director Manieri has a question.
Yeah, just two very quick questions. I want to be mindful that we still have public comment and discussion time. My first question is, I'm just wondering if there's been any discussion or any thought around if Measure O passes in the county, if any of that comes down to schools, and if there's been any conversation around making sure, to your point, Superintendent Kitamura, that it actually that we actually get it, that it actually serves the students that need it most. I'm wondering if there's been conversation about that.
There hasn't been direct conversation to us about that. Steve, have you? No.
No,
Yeah.
no. In fact, it's been lacking from the county level, of course.
Yeah.
When the CAPE
yeah.
funds withdrew and everything, we've lost a lot of contact and a lot of important connection.
Right. And so I think Director Monnier, you and I had spoken that you had heard maybe that CAPE would be a priority for if Measure O passed.
Yeah, the last time I heard a supervisor talk about Measure O, she said that one of the programs they wanted to reinstate was CAPE. And then my head immediately went to, well, how can, if CAPE it used to exist on our campuses, how can we make sure that they come back to our campus?
And we want CAPE back on our campuses. And if we can't get the CAPE that we were used to having, then we want to create our own. And that again will be resources.
And my second question was around the youth truth data, and if it's possible for us as board members to have access to that raw data.
Assistant Superintendent Guzman.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that should be an issue. So let me work on that. We've been talking to, so I will get some information. I will share that with Superintendent Kitamura.
I think that the other thing that we are realizing now, and Director Close has been on me about this since the get-go, so is that we really need a research and development team member. We're getting to the point that we first of all don't have the expertise that an R&D person would have, but secondly, there's just so much we want to assess. There's just so much, and so that would be another resource that we would ask the board to invest in research and development, research and assessment person to be able to really analyze data and tear it apart and put it back together and the key thing, present it in a way that people understand. That's the huge part of it too. So.
Great.
Sorry, Dr. Monnier, did you have another question?
No, that was it. Thank you. I have a lot for discussion, but we'll get there.
Okay.
I see no other hands for questions, and I'm going to ask the moderator, are there any public comments?
So this is a call for public comment on item E2. If you'd like to comment on E2, please raise your hand using the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. And we have a hand raised. It's Mara Ryan.
Hello. Just once again, I am thrilled with all of this work that the district has been doing. It's so essential. It's been essential, and it's just more and more essential as we move forward. So beautiful presentation. Congratulations. And makes me very proud to be a parent in our district. So thank you so much for addressing all aspects of social emotional development, the whole child, trauma informed practices, and our staff, because we need education to understand that some things that are going on might actually be manifestations of some ongoing long-term stressors from these traumas. So I can't say enough. I'm so pleased and very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maura.
And there are no more hands raised.
All right, so public comment is closed. And this is board discussion time, and this is a discussion item, and I'm going to call on Director Close first.
Thank you, President Fong. First, I want to just kind of say yes to everything that Dr. Sheffield and Director De La Cruz and Dr. Mayer, like all the comments that have been made before my board members. I don't want to repeat, but thank you. And thank you, the staff, for the great report and the thoughtful work and the focus on this. I too am proud of our district for making this a priority and being smart enough and thoughtful enough to focus on this mental health aspect. I have been saying, as Superintendent said, I have been, saying for a long time that we need to put some money into someone who can really do some serious data analysis and presentation, and also sort of interface with the community and seek out some grants. We are unique. Everyone is dealing with COVID. Not everyone has been hit with relentless trauma after trauma after trauma. Our students have been impacted in a way that others have not. And there's just not a lot of kids in the country who, in addition to everything else, know that when they go to bed at night, the fire could just burn right down into their semi-urban neighborhood, and it's and they're afraid, and the data shows it. So we need someone who can use this data to make this case and then go out and get us some money and some attention. Because yes, Diane, you're right. Like on a greater scale, we need major legislative changes for all of our schools. But for our district and our county, we need to be specifically advocating for it. And I think that the interest will be there. We just need someone who has the bandwidth to go get it. And so I, for one, would be very happy to vote yes on a couple of positions to deal with this data and to go out and seek significant grant funding, because I know it takes time. I know that Kaiser application, and it's a biggie, and I know you took some time to do that, and I am really grateful to Kaiser and Lane Wall. Again, thank you to them, but we need more. The other thing is that I think it is really important, that comment that Superintendent made, I think, about the chicken and the egg with academic progress and mental health. On the one hand, students, it's going to be hard if they're dealing with mental health problems to make real good strides with their academics. On the other hand, academics might be the best thing in a certain student's life, and success breeds success. And we have to really look at how we can give our students that first hook, that first positive step, and whether that's English class or the school psychologist they're seeing, or basketball team, whatever that is, that can sort of start that good snowball in the positive direction. We need to figure that out. And again, that's a bandwidth issue. It is more than we can expect from teachers. It's more than we can expect from our current staff, because we are dealing with something unique. And another thing, and then the last thing, and I appreciate the comments that someone made about our teachers too. When we signed cards after the Tubbs fire, we signed 800 of them for students and 100 of them for staff. And that was just the Tubbs fire. But those staff members did not just suffer personal losses, some of them, but they also have absorbed the trauma of their students on the daily and every year when something else happens. So we are unique. We need to acknowledge that and start shouting it to out and leverage that to get the help that we need. So I would love to see something come back to us and something soon that says we need some people. We need to invest in them so that we can leverage the data and give our students and staff the support that they need in this very unique situation.
Director Manieri.
Thank you, and I'll take the opportunity first to thank staff for all of the work that you've been doing. And I know that we have some policies coming up that support this presentation and the work that you're doing. So I want to acknowledge that and say thank you. And also, I'd like to throw a little bit more, since we're talking so much about data, I also wanted to share some data that some of my students who are community mental health ambassadors that they collected around distance learning and student mental health. So it wasn't a super comprehensive survey, and the sample size is, not great compared to the number of students that we have across Sonoma County, because these students are from across Sonoma County. But I think it tells a story, and it also provides a little bit of insight and supports some of what we've heard today during the presentation. So one of the questions that that they asked was, if you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, or depressed, who do you talk to? And 45% of those who responded said no one. I keep it to myself. 30% said I talk to a friend. And so even though that 45% is super alarming, I also see a lot of opportunity in that kids are talking to each other, that they're relying on one another. And so something that I'd like to maybe see us also invest in is some peer support, and how can we involve students in the process of all of this, and in feeling like they have autonomy over the situation that they're all experiencing right now. I think that kind of peer support goes a really long way when we're talking about prevention and awareness. And I know one of our new therapists in the district, and I know that she's shared with me a little bit of a disappointment that students aren't showing up to her group sessions. And I was like, well, I'm not surprised. Like, students want to hang out with each other, and they want to talk to each other because they're all experiencing high levels of trauma and anxiety, and they need to talk to people that are going through the same thing. And so maybe we need to look at the way that we're offering some of these groups and some of these services. I think that also addresses that need for community that you, Superintendent Kitamura, talked about. Another one of the questions that our students asked was, what kinds of things give you the most stress? 100% of them said school. So I'm not surprised by that either. But I think that we have to acknowledge that everything around schooling right now is just so stressful and anxiety provoking. And we need to have empathy and compassion for our students, because they, for whatever reason, it could be because, they think that they're not going to go to college, or now they can't because of financial issues at home, whatever it is. There's a lot of stress around school in general. And over half of them said jobs and paying bills. So a lot of them are trying to take care of their families in the ways that they can. And so, I mean, I can imagine being a 16, 17-year-old stressing out over school, and then also stressing out over whether or not my family can pay their rent. It's a lot. And so I'm glad to see how our services are progressing, and how we're really taking steps toward supporting our students. I think that we need more data, definitely. I'm excited to see students go out and get their own data. I think we need more of that too, because they're asking very impactful questions. They know what questions to ask each other. And I'd like to see more of that happen too. Or I don't know, maybe that's something that Student Board Member Lopez can take on, to try to get some more feedback and information. The last thing I want to say is that I see a really, really big opportunity to continue strengthening our response. And I loved that in one of the last slides in the presentation, the staff mentioned how this would go along, or one of the implications I wanted to say was continue to expand district staffing to provide mental health responses and to reduce reliance on contractors. That makes me really happy. I do think that we need more in-house support and services. I like the moving away from contractors, and just from a mental health standpoint too, it doesn't help when we have contractors that have such high turnover rates. So if our students aren't seeing the same mental health care providers on a frequent basis, if they're having a different person every time they're having a session, it's not helpful. But I really like this move away from contractors. I think that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Director. Am I missing anybody's hand? Director De La Cruz?
I think, sorry for making comments when I should have been asking questions. Diane. Same. So the last point that I wanted to just mention as an opportunity, and this goes to Director Sheffield's point about grant writing, and that grant writing will pay for itself and that we are special and we are unique, is around climate change adaptation. And so this is just such a huge area where there is hope for kids and where there is hope for our planet and for our people, is in this movement that, you know, is really grounded also in environmental justice, which is a recognition that, you know, if we are really looking at the solutions that come from the communities that are most impacted by climate change, then we're also providing them like something that helps them to imagine something where, you know, the fire is not going to burn down their home one night. And we're giving them, you know, some sense of what is possible when you use science, when you use social studies, when you use, you know, math, and when you use your language about capacity or whatever it is. And it's so tied to, I think, what my kid is so blessed to have right now in project-based learning. But I would really love for kids to have some intellectual grounding in the experience of what they're going through right now, and some positive way of understanding that moving forward, you know. And this goes to, I think, again, we are special, we are unique, we are ground zero for California's climate change. And so this is a place for, you know, an enormous opportunity for investment in our kids to be part of that adaptive movement, and to feel like they have something to hang on to when they go to bed at night, to know that, you know, I did something cool with my roof and I helped my school do XYZ, just some way of being able to really have that grounding in what it is that is possible, when you're really engaged in that movement to survive and thrive in the face of such challenges. So yes to grant development, yes to whatever we need to do, to really get that, you know, that R&D team up and running. Please know you have our support, my support.
All right. Any other comments from board members? All right, I'm going to speak, and if you have anything else that you'd like to say, you can. I'll call on you after I talk. Again, Kesa and Eric, great job. Steve, great job presenting that tonight. I'm going to tag on to growing our own contractors. Yes, we didn't want CAPE to go away and it to go away, but we need to have our own CAPE. It's much more effective. Diane, as a counselor, you know that. So I would prefer that. You know, we have an extremely strong board here. We have health professionals, and we have an equity officer. We have a student voice, strong student voice. We have educators, and we have housing experts and attorneys and folks who work deeply in equity, deeply into equity issues. And Diane, I want you to use us. We need to be the strongest advocates out there for the kids. And when we don't know some of this data, and when we don't hear these stories until there's a board presentation, we're not being able to help shape that narrative in our community. We are at the biggest fish in this medium-sized pond of Sonoma County. And I know that districts look to us, and I know the superintendents look to you, Diane. And board members actually look to us as well, right? I was shocked. I was visiting in Mendocino, and a Fort Bragg person recognized me because that Fort Bragg person is a board member who watches us. So we are leaders, and I want our board members to have a bigger slice of leading that for the community, to shape that narrative, to sound that alarm, to paint that picture, tell that story, so that we can get our community focused on our children and our youth and how it affects every single layer of this community. And it starts with social, emotional well-being. And we're doing a good job, but we have to continue to do better, right? We're never going to rest, ever. I'd like to hear another data piece brought back to us, because whenever we do any endeavor, we tend to hear about it. We think it's great, and sometimes we don't hear about it again. So I want to keep pulse. I want to keep a pulse on this. I want to see how we're doing. I want to see how we're doing, late spring or early spring, whenever we can get this going again. Another data chunk. And then finally, I'm going to ask, how does this social emotional well-being connect to our academic practice? And we need to bring it right back into the classroom. How does grading contribute to student well-being or depression? Homework. Activities that buoy a soul and bring joy to a child or a teenager, those kinds of activities in school, in classrooms, teacher to student, the well-being shoots up. And the opposite, the well-being shoots down. And we don't hear from the kid, and the camera's turned off. And so I know that you're working on it, Diane. I know that you know this. I'm not preaching to you, the choir. But we need to say academics and social emotional well-being are hand in hand. And we can affect this through how we teach and what we teach. And we can't ignore that. And we have to continue to hammer that. It is time for us to change. We can never go back. And so when a kid gets an F grade, what does that do to that social emotional learning, that social emotional wellness? It puts it into the toilet. And it's really hard to get back. And how many lights have we extinguished because of the red marks on an essay versus this is great. This part is amazing. We're not there yet, but I will help you do this versus a one-time grade in a grade book. And there's too much of that. There's just too much of that. We have to connect it. So I'd like to have reports back. I'd like the board members to, and we're ready. I know that every single board member is ready to dive in and to advocate, and we need the information to be able to say that in every single circle that we're influencers in. And this board can do that. And then connect it to the academics. And look at those practices that are soul-killing practices. Any other board member that didn't speak yet would like to say anything?
I would like to say that the information we provided tonight is your fuel, and that we prepare in this way for it to be the information that you can go on and share about. I think that we have been data poor. We do not have the capacity. I'm just going to say that. And so if there have been gaps in data, that is the reason. And I can't deal with it anymore. I can't handle it anymore. We've got to have more help in this area. I think that, the board, myself in these presentations, if we will have an eye on that, this be your jumping off point as a board member to go out as individuals to do the connections and dialogue you need to do with folks. Next week, the RTS plan, that's going to be next month, the whole wealth of information that will be provided to work together with this community. I'm just trying to think about what it is you need, because you've asked me this before, Lori. What do you need? What can I do? And I think I just keep telling you, we have to, you folks are policy, budget, big systems kinds of thinkers. And that's where I need you to elicit your influence. And that is the systems, the partnerships, all the way from local to national. And just remember we're the how. Okay. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'm frozen out.
But we can still hear you.
Sorry, can I just one last thing, President Fong? Superintendent Kitamura, I really appreciate that trust in us to pop off on our own. We will do that. I also really want to make a plug for this being a coordinated campaign. And this goes to, coordinated R&D, coordinated data development, that flows in to really allowing each of us to step into that place to pop off in a way that's coordinated, in a way that's really organized. And so, I think it is kind of, in organizing, you do a power analysis and you figure out who's got what contacts and you send them there in that place and who's got the next place. And you do this in a very coordinated fashion. And that's what I would really love for us this moment, is not to kind of just rely on us doing this on our own, but to understand that we are an ecosystem that together is much more powerful if we're understanding each of us going to do and how and what data we need in order to do that in the way. And I don't want to speak for all the rest of my board members, but I just think that is it's a really important moment for us to step into that place to say, let's do a power analysis. What do you need? What power do we have? And then us need to step into that power. And we need to do it because our kids need us to do it now. And our teacher that right now. And our town needs us to do that right now. And our county and the person in Fort Bragg needs to see that we are engaging in this in a coordinated, strategic, or campaign-like fashion. And so, President Fong, this is clearly not the right time to do that, but I just feel like that we need to model the ways in which each of us is going to say, here are the people that we need to move. Here are the people that we need to make sure hear from us about what's happening to our kids in our town, that they have a role and they have the authority and the power and the money and the whatever it is to do things differently than is happening right now. And I want us to have that conversation where we're really speaking kind of with each other to our larger community as a body. And again, stepping into that powerful place that we can do really best together. And not each of us on our own popping off. Because like I said, we will do that well, and it will be that much more beautiful and that much more powerful when we're doing this in a way that, is together and recognizing the power that we have in our togetherness.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with President Fong, nor you, Director De La Cruz. But I will say this. I'm going to admit, I guess you should say, and be somewhat vulnerable right now. And that is that takes capacity to do what you're saying. I agree with it 100%. But your superintendent has been dealing with crisis after crisis as well as being very shorthanded at the executive level. And so now I think with some things that'll happen tonight in terms of personnel, I think that with approval of a research and assessment team, that I can lead in a way that would help develop that. The other thing is that I've only had like two boards, but this board is willing and wanting to do that together as a team. That's another huge difference. And so, of course, I want to capitalize on that. I think it's smart, and it's the way what we need to do. I would just say, let me get things in order now that we have some personnel coming aboard, be able to free up some of my capacity to work on that area. Absolutely.
I see Director Close's hand up.
Thanks. Superintendent, I hear you. You've been through this over and over and over and over. And I know, having been by your side for 3 years of that you work all the time. and that you live and breathe this. I know that. And so I hear you. I think we all hear you. And at the same time, I want to encourage you. I'm speaking for myself, but I suspect I'm going to have some board support for this, to be bold in this endeavor, to not look for, you know, a person or two people, but to really look for sort of like a department. And because it will pay for itself. It'll pay for itself. Be bold. That department can look for university partners. We are perfect. You know, we're a perfect test case for all kinds of research. And that kind of study can also bring in some money and some attention and can help us. And so my personally, I am one of 7, but you know, see how it goes. Be bold. Please be bold in seeking that.
Okay.
And we deserve it after everything.
Okay. You heard that, my team.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. And we are going to take a minute for a 5-minute break, actually, while we change interpreters. So I will see you back at 11:06, 8:11 on the dot. Everyone back? I'm counting. Director Close, Superintendent, okay, so we have a quorum of board members. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right. And there's Director Close. Thanks, everybody. We are on discussion action item number 3, which is the first reading and possible waiving of the second reading of the graduation waiver being brought to us. Extension. Dr. Kitamura?
Yes. President Fong, we bring back this graduation board policy really as a result of what's going on with the pandemic. So with that, I turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Guzman.
Thank you, Superintendent Kitamura, President Fong, members of the board. Yes, we're bringing back 6146.1 to discuss the waiver for both mathematics and language other than English. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Dr. Goyle, who oversees mathematics for our secondary district. Dr. Goyle.
Thank you, Dr. Guzman. Dr. Kitamura, President Fong, members of the board, thank you for having me here this evening. And if you will indulge me just a few minutes, I'd love to take us down a little walk down memory lane and how we got here this evening. I'm sure this is all going to come back to you because how could we forget these wonderful things that we've done, such as in the spring of 2018, the Board of Education voted to change the graduation requirements by adding a year of math and language other than English. Then in January 29th, 2020, we held a special study session and the board directed staff to come back with the waiver options for the new graduation policy. I think this was a really great time in which we all acknowledged that 2 transitions were really happening at once. We were moving from a traditional math pathway to an integrated math pathway, which was really having our math teachers think about a redesign, not just a redesign of how they teach math in the sequence, but also just how they teach and engage students. And there was also that acknowledgement of the new graduation policies, as well as we had discussed the implementation dip and whatever, and those things, that implementation dip, that happens when we have significant change. Then on March 11th was the first reading of the board policy. And that did include the graduation waiver. And then that was approved on March 25th. This brings us to tonight. And in between March 25th and tonight, there has been some significant trauma that has been happening with our students. And we just spent a very engaging conversation about acknowledging what is happening with our students. In August of this year, a math department chair brought to the attention of the teaching and learning department, do we want to review this graduation waiver? We want to add a year. And also, should we look at the language of the graduation waiver, specifically in terms of the math piece? And when we talk about a graduation waiver, I want us to be clear on what we're talking about. Graduation waiver is that saying that so process that is intentionally excuses a student from specific graduation requirements based on certain factors. By waiving math and or language other than English, students remain on track towards graduating with the Santa Rosa City Schools diploma. However, if they utilize the waiver, they are not eligible to apply the UC CSU program. So again, we come here tonight because we were looking at the graduation waiver, extending it. Should we extend it by a year? Not just based on the disruption to student learning, but the trauma that our students are going through, and looking at the language. With that math department chair, Dr. Guzman, Director Zalianardo, and myself met. We discussed the language, could see that the language was a little confusing, not so clear. We worked on that language. We then took that language and the idea of extending this by a year to our math steering committee, as well as the counselors. And this brings us to our request to extend the graduation waiver by 1 year and to look at that language to be more specific to help with that clarity of who is eligible for a graduation waiver. And again, based on the disruption to student learning and the trauma that our students are going through, we thought an extension by 1 year to extend to the class of 2023 would be appropriate. And with that, I turn it back over to Dr. Guzman.
Thank you, Dr. Goyle. Dr. Kitamura, I turn it back over to you and the board.
President Fong.
Dr. Goyle, is it Dr. Goyle? All right. Board members, questions? I see no hands. Are we all on one screen? Okay. And moderator, we're going to ask for public comment now. So moderator, do we have any public comment?
So this is a call for public comment on item E3. If you'd like to comment, please press the raise hand button on your screen. There are no hands raised.
Board members, any comments for discussion? Director McCormick.
Thank you for the recap. I think that is helpful. And I think this is where the rubber meets the road when we're talking about our previous agenda item and how it is directly connected to academics. And I think, you know, that figuring out what to do academically is exactly like you said, Dr. Kitamura, about, you know, what do we tackle first? Mental wellness and dealing with trauma and or the academic problem. And I think we have to attack them both at the same time, because time is going forward and it's affecting our students. So I think this is a reasonable proposal. I think the wording is better, and I think extending this helps give some more grace to the current academic situation that our students are facing in light of the distance learning we've been in since March. So anyways, I'm in support of this extension. I am comfortable with moving it forward as an action item, even though it's a first reading tonight. But I see we have that option, and I think this is a good first step and something that we can do right away to help take some pressure off some of our students.
Thank you, Director McCormick. Director Close.
If that was a motion, I would second that motion.
Sure, I'll make a motion.
Let's restate that motion, Dr. McCormick. Director McCormick.
You guys got an upgrade. So I am going to move that we move this from a discussion item to an action item as it's stated in the agenda, and that we approve this reading and waiving of the second reading of the graduation waiver extension to the class of 2023, the board policy 6146.1.
All right, so that was motioned by Director McCormick and seconded by Director Close. Any other discussion, board members? Director De La Cruz.
I think this is such a hard thing for us to do. And it feels a little bit like a failure. And I want folks to know that this is not a failure, that it's totally okay in this moment to say I can't. And that at some point I will. And if you need to say that right now, that's okay. That is not a failure. And it's hard and it's sad and it makes us not feel great. But know that when you say I can't, all of a sudden, like something comes off your shoulders. Mm-hmm. And I want that to feel like what it is that we're doing tonight is taking that off of the shoulders of our staff and of our parents and of our kids, most importantly, that they know that that's what this is and that there is absolutely no shame in saying right now I can't. And that's really hard for us to do culturally, and it's hard for this board in particular to do, I think. But I just want to make sure that that's what it is that our community hears us say tonight, is that it's okay to say I can't. That's it.
I'm going to add to that. Thank you for that. And when a child is so frustrated, or when a teen is so frustrated that they can't get the math, we need to look internally. What are we doing to stop creating barriers, to pull down those barriers that prevent kids from learning? How are we tackling this differently? How are we teaching to that child and what that child needs or what that teen needs? So it goes back to how we do the academics, how we reach out, how we deliver our education, what our pedagogy is, and how we are connecting and making those relationships and back to that social emotional well-being of our students. So nothing's separate, everything's tied together. All right, so I see Director Lopez's hand up.
And just building off that, we really need to underscore that this is nobody's fault. There was a huge whammy of all these things that came together at once. And I know everybody has worked really hard, but we need to just do this right now so that our students can succeed and that they don't have to worry about this and that we can look towards the future. So nobody has failed. And please keep that in mind. It was just a huge avalanche of things that hit us all at once, unfortunately.
Thank you, Director Lopez. All right, Adina, we can have that vote now.
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director Close.
Aye.
Director Manieri.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
President Fong.
Aye. Thank you. That passes. We're moving on to action item 4, approval of the CSBA board policy updates for many policies.
Yes, President Fong, I think Assistant Superintendent Mazzara might say this. And so actually, I am not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to just turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Mazzara.
Okay, hope I can do it right. Thank you, President Fong, board members, and Dr. Kitamura. As you are well aware, we bring policy updates to the board periodically. We are kind of moving forward and making sure we get caught up as quickly as possible. I only had three jobs to do this time. And so my department's up first. Each department will be coming forward and bringing these, but we're bringing you a combination of a number of things. And we brought some before in September. Some of these are just just some basic updates to laws. You saw, I think, Director Manieri, you mentioned about the suicide prevention. Of course, that's a strong piece that we're bringing. Some of these are just legislative changes. There's nothing really structural that really requires more in-depth research. We would bring something forward with a group of people if we were. Again, we feel these are just your basic policy updates, and I don't think there's anything controversial in those. And so we're suggesting this becomes a first in action read. And with that, I turn it back to the board for a possible motion.
Do we have any questions? I'm going to open it up for public comment.
So this is public comment on item E4. If you'd like to comment, please press the raise your hand button on your screen. Last call for E4. There are no hands.
Thank you very much. Any discussion, or can call for the motion? Director McCormick.
I just wanted to say thank you to Assistant Superintendent Mazzara and your team for working on these. I actually read through them. It is a lot of work, and it's intentional work, and it's good work that we are doing based on expert opinion from CSBA. So I appreciate that while we're in crisis, we still have to take care of business. And I appreciate you taking these steps on a big chunk of getting the board policy updated and up to current standards. So with that, I would like to move that we approve the CSBA board policy updates for, should I read them all out? Do I need to read them all?
Please.
Okay. BP 4119.11, BP 4219.11, is that a repeat? BP 431911, BP 5141.22, BP 5141.52, BP 5144, BP 5144.1, BP 5145.3, BP 5145.6, EX 5145.6, BP 5145.7, BP 5146, BP 6159, BP 6159.1, BP 6159.2, and BP 6175.
Second.
Approval.
Okay, so thank you. That was motion by Director McCormick and seconded by Director De La Cruz.
No, Dr. Manietti.
Director Manieri. Sorry, Stephanie.
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director Manieri.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director Close.
Aye.
President Fong.
Aye, thank you. That passes. Item E5 is an action item. It's a call for nominations for representatives to the Sonoma County Committee on School District Organization. And I know that we already have Director Sheffield on that committee.
Yeah, okay. So right now, President Fong, we have, we are allowed for District 2 and 5. And President Fong and I looked over the maps, and we do not have a board member in the District 2.
Two.
Yeah, District 2. But we do have a board member in District 5, and that would be Director Manietti.
So let's be clear, these are supervisorial districts.
Correct. Correct. Go ahead. Can you describe?
Yeah, I can describe a little bit about what the job entails, and it meets only a couple times a year, and as needed. But for the most part, what the position, what the committee does is it oversees the reorganization of school districts in the county. This could be through territory transfer, district consolidation, and unification. So it oversees the creation or the reconfiguration of trustee areas. It can dissolve a district if it's brought to the committee. It also addresses any border shifts or by trustee area. This has been the big issue that we've been dealing with over the past, since we went to by trustee area, so have other school districts in the county. So, just as the demographers come to the district that is choosing to go by trustee area, those presentations are then brought to this committee to do sort of a final approval of the process. It's like I said, it's not a huge block commitment wise, but you definitely have to do your research. You definitely have to know, what the issue is. You're given plenty of notice before the meetings take place because they don't occur regularly. And it consists of, gosh, I want to say, there's number wise, 20 or so members. I don't know the exact number.
Yeah.
A little bit difficult to do in COVID times. But it really has it's an important function. And I think if Stephanie, if you're interested in it, I can tell you a lot more about it. There's some great personalities, people that are, who a lot of the folks were former school board members or sitting school board members, but really people who have been a part of the school community for a long, long time. There are a lot of old timers who are part of this committee, and their experience that they bring is very valued.
So I know that our former director, Frank Pugh, is on the committee as well.
Correct.
I'm supportive of the big fish of Santa Rosa City Schools having more say, and I would like to nominate Stephanie Manieri to that committee.
I'd like to second the nomination. Do you do that? Okay.
But do you
Does Director Manieri accept?
Yes, I
Okay.
accept the nomination. Thank you. This is, I'll definitely reach out and for more information and to just get a better feel for it. But I agree with President Fong that SRCS needs to have a big presence on this committee. So I definitely accept.
Prior to your first meeting, you will receive a binder that's about 4 inches thick. You could do your homework.
It'll be like reading the board.
Let you tell her that now.
The meetings are very informal though, so I will say that. I don't know how it operates in the Zoom world, but yeah, I think you're great for it.
Do we vote on it?
Yeah.
Do we need to call for any other nominations? Okay, seeing none.
But before we do, she does need to know that there is a process, a formal process where you write a letter. It's very basic, asking for, the placement from this, with the board support, of course, to be on this board.
So this is a nomination. There's a vote also. Not just our vote.
Right.
The larger.
We're nominating our candidate, Stephanie Manieri.
All right, so let's take a vote on that. Dina, you ready for that?
President Fong, can you repeat who called for the motion?
I did, and then it was seconded by Director De La Cruz.
De La Cruz.
Thank you. Director Lopez,
Aye.
President Fong,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Manieri,
Do I vote on this or do I abstain? Can I
Sure.
say aye? Okay, aye.
Director Sheffield,
Aye.
Director McCormick,
Enthusiastically, aye.
Director Close.
Aye.
And that's everyone.
Okay, good. Thank you, Director Manieri, for accepting that. All right, we're moving on to E6. It's an action item. It's oral recommendation regarding Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, salary and fringe benefits. I'll let you introduce that, Superintendent Kitamura.
Yes, President Fong, we are pleased to have a candidate that we would like to bring forward as the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Anna Trunell comes to us with many years of experience. And so this is her contract. And I just would say that, remind you that you have to read all the oral recommendations, and then the motion must be read as it's written as well. Oops, you're okay. Would you like me to read it?
Who's got the full thing up? I do not. I have the agenda only and not all the people.
Does another board member have it up? If not, I can read it.
Is it under consideration on the agenda?
Yes, it's the oral Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. And then you read the 4 lines below that.
Okay. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So oral reading, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources. The Assistant Superintendent's contract states that the Assistant Superintendent's salary for the remainder of the 2021 fiscal year will be $100,018,975. The 2021 work year for the Assistant Superintendent shall be 155 days. The contract provides the Assistant Superintendent with the same access to health, dental, and vision benefits as other management employees. And finally, the contract provides for a $3,600 prorated as annual reimbursement for automobile-related expenses.
I second.
I don't think that was the motion, but I will make the motion now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I move that we accept the oral recommendation regarding Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources salary and fringe benefits. Discussion and board vote on Assistant Superintendent employment agreement.
Now I second.
All right.
Have public comment on this?
Yes,
And I don't know if we had public comment on the last item either.
we didn't. We have public comment right now on E6.
We did ask for public comment on.
Did I? Oh, there wasn't any.
We
There
did not
wasn't.
ask for public comment on E5, the last item.
Well, either item 5 and 6, we can take public comment.
Okay. So here we go, item 5 or 6, E5 or E6. Anyone who'd like to make public comment, please raise your hand by pushing the raise hand button. And there are no hands.
All right. Let's have that vote now, unless there's other discussion by the board members. I see no hands. I saw no hands. Still no hands. Adina,
Director Lopez,
Aye.
Director McCormick,
Aye.
Director De La Cruz,
Aye.
Director Manieri,
Aye.
Director Sheffield,
Aye.
Director Close,
Aye.
President Fong.
aye. Thank you. That passes. And welcome to Anna Trunell. Welcome. We are in F items, consent items. We're pulling F8. And so the consent items are 1 through 7 and 9 through 16, including approval of absent board member Director Omar Medina, who's not feeling well tonight. So 1 through 7, 9 through 16.
I move that we approve items F 1 through 7 and 9 through 16.
Second.
Thank you.
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Do we want public comment? President Fong, should we call?
Yes, we do. I am sorry. I always forget that.
So we're going to call for public comment on F 1 through 7 and F 9 through 16. Please raise your hand if you'd like to comment.
Thank you, Beth.
At least we tried, but there are no hands.
Let's start that vote over.
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director Montieri.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Close.
Aye.
President Fong.
Aye. Thank you. So I want to bring back F8, which is the approval of PBK Lewis Campus Head Start proposal. I just had a couple questions about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Could you just describe it to us first?
Oh, okay. Deputy Superintendent Edson.
Yeah, good evening. I will actually ask Assistant Superintendent Mazzara to talk about the program and the coordination and partnership with Head Start on this project.
Yeah, what we did is we've been twice due before. We did an initial grant request over a year ago to work out of Governor Newsom's money that he's applying for childcare, and so we did a joint grant request with Head Start. We did not receive that grant request, and so Head Start has already committed to some of their money by itself. This would have been something we would have layered over the top of Head Start's money. So what's happened is Head Start has asked for 3 classrooms over at Lewis, and so that we've been developing that plan around that. It's going to be kind of an inclusive special education Head Start program where we're going to bring in mild to moderate students in preschool. We have preschool programs already at Lewis. There's kind of going to be an integration of all that, including access to the Integrated Wellness Center. And so what you have in front of you today is PBK's drawing up the plans, putting all that together. As we speak, the plans have been moved to Department of State architects. When that comes out, we will then bid on it and come forward, and Deputy Superintendent Rick Edson can help you more on that. What we're doing now is simply paying for work that's already been done through PBK. And if we do and are ready to come out of it, we have to go through the bid process before we have anything that comes back to the board. This is not an approval of the entire plan. That would come back as a standalone action item. This is simply paying through PBK's work for plans already submitted to DSA.
Is this funding coming through bond or something else?
This funding is coming from Head Start as part of their mutual. They put in money to agree to pay for the plans around that DSA submission.
So why I wanted to pull this is I wanted to highlight that this is another great example of partnership and leveraging community partners with us for social emotional health, well-being in our community, starting with the very littlest, youngest, who will be ours, especially also with the Integrated Wellness Center and with special ed. So I think this is a synergistic type of project. And when we continue to talk about making community partners in our community with all the different entities out there, this is also a step in the right direction. And I like to see more of this. So this is great. I wanted to make sure we highlighted that partnership.
Great. Thank you.
Any other comments on this? We'll take some public comment on this.
So this is item F8. If you'd like to make public comment, please click raise hand at the bottom of your screen, F8. And Margaret Brady Long will speak.
I just would like to ask for clarification. Is Head Start's $580,000 toward the overall project or towards just this part of the project? Thank you.
Rick, it's for the overall part of the project, out of which the money for this plan comes out of, but they have committed over $600,000 to the total project.
All right, so call for the motion on this.
I'd like to move to adopt F8 on behalf of a proud Head Start grad.
I'll second.
All right, we'll call for that vote. That was motioned by Director De La Cruz and seconded by Director Sheffield.
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director Montieri.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director Close.
Aye.
President Fong.
Aye, thank you. We're moving on to item G1, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting held on October 14th, 2020.
I move that we approve the minutes on the regular board meeting held on October 14th, 2020.
Second.
Thank you, Director McCormick and Director Sheffield.
Director Lopez.
Aye.
Director McCormick.
Aye.
Director Sheffield.
Aye.
Director Montieri.
Aye.
Director De La Cruz.
Aye.
Director Close.
Aye.
President Fong.
To that cute little voice. Aye. Thank you. Are there any board member requests for information this evening? See no hands? All right. We are done.
All right.
What time? 8:48.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, good night. Congratulations, Anna Trunell.
There you go, $5.
Oh, we're gonna put $5 on that now too, Anna and Anna?
Dude, you started it.
No, that was on the mute, not on the Anna and the Anna.